Welcome to the EMDR podcast, Journey Through the Eyes. I am Kathy Couch, and Tamera is not with us today. We help new and seasoned clinicians, and we support the EMDR and general clinician market. I'm Kathy Couch, your host today. I am out of Twin Falls, Idaho, and we are here with our very, very special guest, Miss Lisa Martin. She's an LPC and LMFT, and she is in Kerrville, Texas. She specializes in marriage and family therapy, and she is part of our EMDR University program and just recently certified. Yay! Yay! With EMDR, and she's just an amazing human being. So we are so grateful to have her here today. She's working on becoming an EMDR consultant, and EMDR has become her passion and transformed her life. I think if we could maybe just start there, and then we will talk today about our topic, which is LGBTQ and then couples. So can you just kind of start by introducing, you have a great story about how EMDR changed your life and your practice.
Hi, Kathy. I appreciate that introduction. I love you too. You've been amazing, and you've transformed my life as well. Really stuck it out with me through some tough stuff. I referred a client to an EMDR therapist in Bernie, which is about 40 minutes away from here.
Okay.
And she and I got to talking somehow, and I said, well, I'm going to wait and be EMDR trained when it's in person. This was during COVID. And she said, Lisa, run, don't walk to get the training, whether it's in person, whether it's virtual, no matter what, get that training. It will change your life.
It does, doesn't it?
And she has become since my therapist. And so she says it's kind of cool doing therapy with an EMDR therapist because she can talk in shorthand.
Yeah.
She doesn't have to explain everything.
Yeah, you can identify with her on a different level, right?
Right. I try not to be the therapist, though. I try not to pick her brain too much about EMDR because I have you for that.
I love that. I think we all need a why, right? I know I had my aha moment when I went and when I did my basic training, I was like, okay, this is a protocol. And then I realized I had all these questions of like EMDR is a career path. How does that work? There seemed to be a lot of restriction in the leadership that I was experiencing about the openness about how to have this EMDR career path and the scarcity of like, oh, it takes a long time, you'll never get there. And so my mission here at Rewired 360 is to tell you, yes, you can. And you will, if you want to succeed, let me help you, and to create that diverse experience for people. And when I was treating EMDR, Lisa's also TFCB certified, and I'm TFCB CBT certified. And I was having this ethical dilemma inside of myself because I was seeing like these patients leaving therapy with open brains. And I thought, this is an evidence-based practice. How do I treat them? And so then I found EMDR, and it allowed me to experience therapy. I say EMDR therapy is an experience, right?
Oh,
yeah. So I was like, it taught me how to close down the brain, regulate the nervous system, get to the source of the memory networks. And so I think our story, as we're engaging in this, there's a really important place for storytelling. So that's why I like our guests to share their story.
I like stories too. It's funny because I'll see someone in HEB or someplace else out in public that I treated, several years ago, and I can't remember their name to save my life, but I remember their story.
Yeah. And we know who they are. I'm always in my brain in the community going like, okay, who are you? Where do I know you from? Is it patient, therapist, client, colleague,
right.
Through all the things, because there's so many different realms that we work in.
So many, especially in small town. Is your town small?
My town's small. I'm in Twin Falls, so it was about 50,000. I don't know, is yours bigger or less?
About 28,000.
28, but you're sort of still near a big center.
Near San Antonio.
We're near Boise. We're about 2 hours away from our capital, Boise, Idaho. That's sort of one of the epicenters in Idaho, but that's it.
Oh, okay. So you have a place to go shopping.
I have a place to go shopping, a place to get training. That's where I actually did my basic training. And so one of my missions is to bring and expand so that we have the basic training here. Lisa's going to be a consultant at our trainings so that we can expand it to different areas of the community too.
You know, Kathy, you were talking about your initial, basic training.
Yeah.
And I went into it not knowing what I was getting into. I just had no idea how transformative it would be and how, like, I want to live forever now. I've never worried about dying or, when I'm going to die. And now I'm thinking, oh my God, I have all this precious knowledge and all these wonderful people that I get to talk to and be with and be part of their lives. And I don't ever want it to end. But I remember doing that training and thinking, I hope this isn't just something else I put in a file and say, okay, I'm trained in that.
Right. And that's the difference, isn't it? It's
a huge difference. And I immediately, and I recommend this for anyone working toward EMDR basic training or certification, I strongly recommend starting EMDR with your clients and letting them know, you're my first EMDR patient. And here's kind of what it would look like. Is that okay with you?
Yes.
And they love to volunteer for it.
Oh, the consent, right? It's all about consent, and they feel joining you.
I've never had anyone say, oh no, I don't think I want to do that. Never.
I know.
Never have I had that experience.
But then play it forward. Then what happens? Then they go through it with you and you get to see, maybe you've been treating them for a while and you see them and you do this modality and you're like, oh my gosh, we have been working on this for a year and now you're coming here and isn't this
things change,
right? And do you see it and you have that experience with them to where they're at that distress that they've been living on and you've been working on skills or other interventions can actually be transformed for the both of you.
For both of us. I'm just so honored to be a part of people's life in a high value way.
High value way. You're so awesome. I love
that. Tamera and I are both, and you probably are too, on Facebook. It's called High Value Women. And so that's where I got that term. But yeah, I like to be part of people's lives in a high value way.
And that's a group?
That is a Facebook group, yes.
So we will put that in our show notes so we can link to that. I also have a Facebook group at Rewired 360. We can do that.
Now we're strictly video, correct? I mean audio.
We're going to do video. This should be on the replay on YouTube at some point. We're working on that. But right now it's just audio.
Just audio. Okay.
But we will get there. So we have your bio. Can you just start maybe telling us about the LGBTQ community and kind of how you got into that experience, and then you have some really awesome resources through EMDR.
I do.
We would love to hear about that.
So I am lesbian and I live in a very small town, a very Republican town. I'm not going to talk about my politics, of course, but just to give you some idea, there aren't a lot of like-minded or like lifestyle people,
right?
At least not out in the open. But since I've been doing EMDR, I'm discovering there's a lot more than I thought.
Oh, good.
Yeah. On my Google profile and other places where I advertise, and I think this is important for all of us to do, I always put LGBTQ plus friendly.
Yes.
Not tolerant.
Oh, yes. That's a very good point.
Put LGBTQ plus friendly.
So for our listeners out there, that's a very important point. Can you describe the difference between those two for us?
Well, the first thing that came to my mind is I have 3 elderly dogs, very elderly, 13, 14, and 15.
Okay.
And sometimes they have accidents, and I tolerate them peeing on the floor. When it's, an accident. It's not that it doesn't upset me sometimes, because it does, but I'm very tolerant of them. I love them and I'm tolerant of them. LGBTQ friendly means I'm welcoming it. I'm welcoming you into my office, into my space, into my heart.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Well, I think that that's a very
I don't
important
just
point.
tolerate it.
Yeah.
And me being lesbian, and I don't advertise that, and I don't really speak about that at all. There have been occasions with my LGBTQ community that I see, that I have mentioned that I have a wife.
Okay.
But that's not something I typically mention, and I certainly don't talk about it in depth.
So let's talk about your resources. You have a wealth of resources. We're going to put these in our episode notes, so don't worry about that. Just scroll down and hit the notes
Okay.
session. And so can you talk about the resources that you have found and maybe some of your key skills for our audience in working with the population, or key learnings maybe that you've had?
I think it's really important to remember how many types of trauma someone who identifies as LGBTQ plus may have experienced. This population is as much at risk as the rest of the population regarding trauma through natural disasters, loss of loved ones, occupational hazards like first responders and military members, and other traumas that can affect people. But in addition, there are many ways that LGBTQ individuals specifically may experience trauma, including myself, including harassment and discrimination in school and at work, medical care needs being unmet, internalized shame, family rejection, physical assault, sexual assault, and microaggressions.
Those are all huge topics, aren't they?
Huge. And I have a really good definition of microaggressions.
Okay.
I got it from the EMDR website. Y'all, whoever's listening, if you're a therapist and you're on this road with us, you're on this journey with us, really go in and do a deep dive into EMDRIA.
Okay.
Because
We do want to you made this distinction. We want to make sure that our listeners know. So EMDRIA is the EMDR International Association. If you're an EMDR therapist and you're not a member, some of these resources may not be available to you until you're a member.
And become a member. If you need to scrimp somewhere else, but you need to be a member of EMDRIA.
Because what happens? They answer our questions. They give us support. You connect with your tribe.
Just getting prepared for this podcast, I thought, well, gosh, what am I going to say about gay people? But EMDRIA has just wonderful articles, chapters, excerpts, blogs, podcasts, and it's all just listed out there for you.
Okay.
And the only reason I did a deep dive into that specifically today was because I knew I was going to be here with you. Ask me, and I wanted to sound like I knew more than I probably do.
You do know.
Well, I know what it's like to live it. I can give an example if you want one.
We do want an example. Let's talk about these resources, and then we'll talk about tips and personal.
Okay, so can I just give you the definition of microaggressions?
Yeah,
because
let's
it's
start
a
there.
little enlightening for me. I thought I knew.
Oh, okay.
And I do, but EMDRIA says microaggressions are subtle insults that are delivered through dismissive looks, gestures, and tones that are often directed toward people of color. In the mid-1970s, homosexuality was removed as an official mental health diagnosis. Some gay lesbians grow up in religions that are welcoming and affirming faith communities for sexual minorities. AIDS was initially known as a gay-related immune deficiency,
Yes.
as it was first diagnosed in the United States among homosexual men. And to this day, if you say the word AIDS, I think that it's a very common response for homosexuals to click into your brain.
So do you know the background of that?
Not enough to speak intelligently on it, do you?
I don't. I think just this is a little graphic, but there's more blood receptors in the anus than there are in other ways in
Oh, yes.
first. And so I think just the transmission rates are higher for that population because of the way that they experience connection with each other.
Yes.
And so I think that might
I
be,
love the way you put that, the way they experience connection with each other. I love that.
yeah, right. So
Words are so important.
words, right? And so I think that was a stigma that they experienced. And so it just maybe had a higher rate because of that. I don't think that was just my thought. Of course, if you're a
Yes.
listener and you're listening to that, write in to journeypodcast360@gmail. Maybe educate us. We'll have us back for a follow-up, but that's my understanding so far.
Yeah. Okay.
I did
So-
want to say, just tie a connection to a previous episode. We had Dr. Nicole Montero on in regards to racial trauma and the way that people of different races experience the workplace. And she also discusses those microaggressions and gives some really powerful examples as well. So it's a very important concept, right? Because those are the unseen, the less overt ways we experience discrimination, and it's a personal response, right? It's not the macro response. So that's very important.
And it's not something to shy away from as a therapist. It's something to be completely open about. I have a pansexual couple, and I'm embarrassed to say this, but I wasn't sure what that meant exactly. I have a pansexual friend, not a friend, an associate, someone I know through my wife, someone that she's known since she was 13. So it's someone who's been in our life a long time, but we don't talk about that.
Would you mind going through the those you had mentioned earlier in the beginning, sort of those classifications and ways that those groups are discussed? Could you maybe give us a brief overview?
Yes, and if there's anything you want more of an explanation about, just ask. So there are allies, there are asexuals, there are biphobia, there's bisexual, there's gay, there's genderqueer, which I wasn't sure what that meant until I got on EMDR and found out. I truly did not know exactly what that meant.
And you're going to go through those for us, right?
You want me to go through each one?
Yeah, that would be helpful so that we can discuss it.
So genderqueer people typically reject notions of static categories of gender and embrace a fluidity of gender identity and often, though not always, sexual orientation. People who identify as genderqueer may see themselves as being both male and female, neither male or female, or as falling completely outside these categories.
Right.
I did not know that in-depth explanation of genderqueer.
We have the asexual components. I did not either. I think there's different terminology too. I think that's going to help us be culturally competent. So
absolutely, just to know these terms or have them handy so you can look them up. I mean, if you're not a therapist who sees genderqueer people or bisexual people or homosexual people, you're not going to probably remember all this.
Yes.
So it's something just to put in a file and, read it and put in a file. And then if you do get someone who's homosexual or a couple that's homosexual, it's good to know these terms.
Yes.
It's just
And
good information.
where can they find these resources on EMDRIA? Do you know specifically?
Yes, I do. https://www. Let me see if I can get my flashlight on my phone. I'm sitting kind of in the dark here.
So there's a bunch of resources that we want to make available to you. For our listeners that aren't members of the EMDR International Association, we also have another resource and website she's going to share. So those are all great ways we can connect.
Okay. I may have to move over to the white.
Okay, what do you got for us?
So I've already said https://www.hrc.org/glossary-of-terms.
And we'll put this in the show notes for you as
Oh,
well.
good.
Yeah, we got you.
It's just really laid out easily for you.
Great. And I think, were there any other terms that you wanted to go over briefly that you feel like would be important to highlight?
Yes. Gender binary, a system in which gender is constructed into two strict categories of male or female. Gender identity is expected to align with the sex assigned at birth, and
Right.
that's another term, sex assigned at birth.
Right.
And gender expressions and roles fit traditional expectations. So this is probably, the majority.
Right.
Gender binary.
Okay.
Male, female. Gender dysphoria. I don't think I need to go into what that is.
Well, maybe just briefly just describe it for our listeners.
So it's clinically significant distress caused when a person is assigned birth gender, when a person's assigned birth gender is not the same as the one with which they identify.
And that's
A
important.
male to female or female to male.
We need, there's a diagnosis and therapy for that as well. So if we're treating these patients, that could be a diagnosis we could use.
Yes.
I know in grief work, there's not a, we're going back and forth on a codable version for grievers. And so it really is important to talk about that as far as diagnosis in these different realms.
Absolutely. Gender expansive, a person with a wider, more flexible range of gender identity and/or expression than typically associated with the binary gender system. Often used as an umbrella term when referring to young people still exploring the possibilities of their gender expression and/or identity. Makes sense?
Yes.
Gender expression, I don't think I need to go into that. Gender fluid, a person who does not identify with a single fixed gender or has a fluid or unfixed gender identity. Homophobia, I think we're clear on
That's
that.
that fear, hatred of people.
Right. Intersex, I did not know what this term was.
Okay.
Intersex people are born with a variety of differences in their sex traits and reproductive anatomy.
Right. So this is where the chromosomes, maybe they might have some of both of the chromosomes.
Right. There's a variety. There's a wide variety of difference among intersex variations, including differences in genitalia, chromosomes, gonads, internal sex organs, hormone production, hormone response, and/or secondary sex traits.
I wanted to ask you though, I just wanted to point this out, that just because we identify in a certain way doesn't mean that we're experts in that field either, right? So
Exactly.
I want to kind of explore that with you a little bit after these terms. I have this site pulled up. Let me just go through these very quickly.
Okay.
So we have lesbian. So those are two women and non-binary people who are in a relationship together. LGBTQ, which is assigned to recognize the limitless sexual orientations. We have non-binaries, who describes a person who does not identify exclusively as a man or woman. So this could be both, somewhere in between, falling completely outside. And then outing is this idea of exposing someone's gender or non-binary identity
And
without
everyone
consent.
has their outing story.
Oh, yeah, right? It's just one of the things that people can use to really harm people.
Absolutely.
Pansexual is a sexual attraction to people of any gender. Queer is a term people use to express a spectrum of identities and orientation that are counter to the mainstream. The catch-all to include many people who do not identify. And questioning is who are those who are exploring. So that's on that website we'll have in the show notes. I'm curious, Lisa, in your experience as being a lesbian woman, just kind of talk to us about how you came to treat your comfort level with lesbian LGBTQ patients. Is that something that you feel like is a specialty of yours? Do you feel like you continue to expand that, or is it just more of an area of clinical education that you have?
Well, we call it in our community La Familia. So I feel an immediate connection. That doesn't mean I like everyone that's lesbian.
Right.
But I feel an immediate connection and open-heartedness toward uh, lesbians and gay men
And
as well.
that drives your ability to treat them. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes, yes. I mean, that's just the cherry on top of the cake.
So what
There's
are some tips for clinicians maybe that we could go through as far as your experience with treating patients in these realms? Could you share with us maybe some tips or strategies of, ways that we can provide culturally competent care, especially with EMDR?
So the first thing I do, Kathy, is I don't assume that I know what their experience is
Or what the identity means to
to
you,
them.
be something that means, so if they come in and say I'm pansexual, okay, tell me what that means to you, right?
You, yes, because it's very, very specific. My way of being a lesbian in the world is not the same as someone else's experience of being a lesbian. I was married and had a child. I was married to a man
Mhm.
and had a child. I did not come out until I was 47 years old.
How was that experience for you? Tell us, can you describe for us your journey there?
Ooh, it was traumatic, Kathy.
Traumatic, okay.
I
What,
went to therapy for 2 years during that time. And this is going to sound really nasty, but my first lesbian experience, it was like that V8 commercial.
uh-huh.
Oh, I could have had a V8 all this time.
Oh, yeah, the V8,
All this time, I didn't really know. Now, looking back, I should have known,
right, okay,
but men tended to be attracted to me, not women.
uh-huh,
I don't. I'm what you call a lipstick lesbian.
uh-huh.
And so men tended to be attracted to me when I was younger, not women at all.
And so
So
there was social context that reinforced how you were supposed to be. So it wasn't until that experience that you realized that you'd been betraying yourself the whole time. Is that what I'm hearing?
I don't think I betrayed myself. I think I chose a woman. I think I chose a person I
Okay,
wanted to be married to.
uh-huh,
It wouldn't really have mattered if it was male or female.
okay,
And so, I'm not strictly binary, in any way. I think it could have been a male or a female. It could have been a transgender person. I just met this person 16 years ago and thought, I want this woman in my life for the rest of my life.
Okay, good. And so when your journey came, were you already a therapist at that time?
Oh, yeah.
You were already a therapist.
Oh, yeah.
So
It was a great big mess.
how did that shape your clinical experience?
Oh, Kathy, I don't know. Because I've always had lesbian friends. All my best buds, are lesbian. And the people I actually go camping with that get to see my hair looking like shit.
Yeah, right. Uh-huh.
Those people are lesbians.
Your tribe, right?
Couples, my tribe, yeah. So, so it wasn't a huge change in that direction. I didn't have to change friends and, um, I definitely experienced, because this is a small community, I definitely experienced some rumors and talk. And my husband at the time, we're good friends now, but at the time, he was very angry, confused, which of course he would be.
Right.
So, we went to therapy together as well. I mean, I felt like I needed to earn my way out of that marriage.
What does that mean?
Well, we had an 8-year-old child,
Yeah.
who was an adored, very wanted child. And I didn't, I, my guilt was mostly around breaking up her family. I really did not want to do that, or I would have left much sooner.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, I didn't want to, I hate to get too personal, but on the other hand, I didn't want to wait until she was 18 and went to college, because that wouldn't have been fair to my husband.
Yeah, that
You
was
know,
my case in my family. My family, my parents were divorced at 18. I don't want to say that's the reason, but there's a weight there as well. Like, as a child, I experienced that responsibility of, are they waiting for me? And I think we have all those experiences no matter what, right? I want to ask you, how did that experience, let's kind of fast forward your, couple of years into this new relationship. Maybe you have some time to reflect. How did that shape your clinical practice? How did that,
I think this is the second time you've asked me that, and I
okay.
haven't answered it very well,
Oh, I'm
because
just
I don't know. Um, I was definitely happier.
happy.
Um, and it was so stressful, but I was so grounded in a way I hadn't been before, because I knew something about myself that I had never let myself know before.
Yeah, right. So in EMDR, we talk about our hidden selves,
Exactly.
other types of cells. Is that an intervention to use? That may be an intervention to use if somebody who has later in life experienced a transition. Would you say that's correct? Maybe to have them explore that hidden part or that oppressed part?
Absolutely.
Mhm.
I work with a transgender male
Mhm.
right now. And one of his parts, because we've talked about parts, he connects with that.
Mhm.
One of his parts, is a 7-year-old little girl having to wear clothes that might as well have been on fire for him,
Mhm.
you know?
Mhm.
And so he is much more grounded since beginning the transitioning journey, since getting on hormones
Of course,
specifically,
yeah. So
which is just,
endocrinologists play a huge role
huge role.
in this. I didn't realize that.
Well, he couldn't have any of his work done here. He had to go to Austin, Texas, of course, to get that done.
How far is that from you?
Oh, it's a couple of hours at most.
Okay. And I think just even here in Idaho, those experiences are less, we may even have to go out of state for those gender reassignment surgeries as well. And they're limited. I think there are some resources there, but still the ideology here can be a challenge as well, right?
Yes, yes. You know, I went to the liquor store in Ingram, which we used to live on a ranch and hunt. And so we go through Kerrville and Ingram and then to hunt. And there was a liquor store right on the way home. And we had people coming over and I wanted to buy some wine. And the man, and this is so not uncommon where I live, but this liquor store owner was talking about, I think he even used the N word, was talking about Obama. It tells you how long ago this was. It was a long time ago, several years. Talking about Obama and gays and drug addicts all need to be put on an island together so that the rest of us don't have to deal with them.
He's going in the Hitler method.
Oh, yeah.
Mhm.
And I was so shocked and appalled, and I didn't say anything because I was in a state of shock. I bought the wine because I had to have the wine. We had people coming up. Anyway, when I got home and told my wife what had happened, she was furious. Guess who at?
You?
Me.
Oh, no.
For not standing up, by God, and saying what my truth is and letting him get away with that. And you're a customer in his store. He has no right to be talking like that. And she was right. I just couldn't say anything then. Fast forward 2 years. I never shopped there again, obviously. But fast forward 2 years, I went in specifically, same liquor store owner, to say, I was in here a couple of years ago and this is what happened. And I just wanted you to know that it hurt me and it hurt you too, because I no longer am a patron here. And he said, he just got so nervous and said, you just go be you. You just go be you. He couldn't wait for me to get out of his store. So it wasn't terribly satisfying. But on the other hand, I finally did what I probably should have done. I don't think being angry or saying things in a spiteful, mean, angry way,
Right.
very productive. My spouse is much more verbal about that kind of thing than I am.
We could do that with EMDR. What we could do, let's go back to the original incident. If you have a regret like that, we might be able to do like a future template. We can install your future self, maybe work on some of those interweaves. I think even going
I
back,
would have done and could have done,
but I would
but I
have,
wish I'd done.
yeah,
Yeah.
repairing that with the male that was born assigned male and then transitioned to female. Was that correct? He was born female, then transitioned to male, your client.
My client, yeah.
We can go back to that child part and we can bring his right now self up and we can go back in EMDR and ego state interventions and do an interweave of what would you say to that, part, and just really kind of begin bringing that part forward in reference to Robin Shapiro's work. It's another training on my list to do.
Yes, Robin Shapiro.
We need
Amazing.
to do that easy ego state interventions. If you're listening, that's a great resource book to be able to.
Yes, you told me to get it and I got it the same day you told me to get it. I was on Amazon before I got off the phone with you.
Yeah, and it has really good scripts.
It's great scripts.
For me as a new clinician, being able to learn how to do that work. And I think, those are some of the interventions and tools we can use in those other child parts, because sometimes there is that. Also, I'm a grief therapist, right? That disenfranchised grief of I couldn't be who I needed to be, this identity formation component, right? So I think all of these things could be potential targets in EMDR therapy, of course, depending on the brain that's in front of you. But those are some ways that you're looking and assessing, like, okay, where's their child part? Is this adult onset like you? Did you, betray yourself in your adult identity, and being able to kind of look at that lifespan and figure out where the targets are.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Or even that.
I wish I were writing all that down. I didn't know we were going to have consultation today. I have so many notes, Kathy. I had to make a binder.
Lisa writes everything down, so if you need anything, she can go back and tell you. So
I
that's
can go back and tell you what we talked about.
exactly. We love that skill. I think it's really important as we're working with these populations to be able to look through and also just validate, even if it's that sense of safety, right? We have our 3 targets: safety, control, responsibility. Is that right now safety is very important, right? That connection. So I think sometimes even me, like we talked about that new EMDR client, isn't this going to be exciting? I think it's also okay to say, I don't know, but I'll find out, or figure out how to do it. That's how I got started in consultation with the pre-verbal protocol. Sandra Paulson's work. I'm going to take that training too. But that's what got me into consultation. I'm like, oh my gosh, how do you do that? That's like next level, And so
Pre-verbal.
yeah, pre-verbal protocol. So going back sort of in utero in the womb, sort of till you can talk, any of those targets there, from what I understand, that's at the Stephen Frankel group. And that can be in our episode notes as well. So I just found that out. And she has a great wealth of knowledge. Sandra Paulson.
Stephen Frankel.
Yep. And that's Sandra Paulson's training there. So she has looking through the eyes. She has a therapy on treating OCD and EMDR. When there are no words, that also has a book that comes with it. Board and Embodied Self. They also have a child custody evaluation component. And just a lot of featured courses there. This is interesting: PTSD and hyperimmune disorders, wanted for first responders and professionals. So anyway, on that site was where I kind of got going on that pre-verbal protocol.
I'm really interested in that too.
Yeah.
My next training is integrating EMDR and sex therapy with couples. Something like that.
Ooh, yay.
Yeah. You know who got me into that was Najee.
Oh yeah, we have a Najee. I can't recall her last name. She's also in our program. She's out of Florida. She's amazing.
I think it's Fernandez.
So smart. Fernandez, I think.
Fernandez, I think so.
And she's
I
amazing.
just wrote her a reference letter, so that's the
Oh,
only
yay.
in my brain.
And there's a book, Come As You Are, for if you're interested in learning more about sex therapy. And I'm Gottman level 2 trained. There's a book. I think we're gonna have Lisa back in a couple of weeks. We're gonna talk about couples treating trauma and affairs. If you're looking on YouTube, here's the image. It's by the Gottman Institute, and I'm working on getting trained in that so that we can do the treating and trauma and affairs.
I want to get that training as well.
And I can do Gottman consultation as well for that. Yay, Lisa's gonna be trained. We just love all the things. There's a point when you need to kind of hone in, right?
Yes, I'm having trouble doing that. There's so much I want to know and learn.
I know it's opened up this brain network for you. So
yes,
we're thrilled to have Lisa here today. Lisa, do you have a website?
No.
We're gonna get that changed. Lisa's gonna have a website up here soon.
How did I know you were gonna say that?
If you don't know who I am, Kathy Couch. I do consulting, business management, teach your practices how to create sustainable practices, get away from billable hour, and do your full self. So for Lisa, it's LGBTQ and couples. I'll teach her how to create a model that can sustain itself, not just say, here, go do that, so that we can get away kind of this billable hour insurance realm. We can validate ourselves as experts and clinicians by this point in our careers, right? It's very important. So that's my role, is to validate that and to help you. You'll get it in the consultation program. So the next one's coming up in May. We'll have the next one in September. We have a EMDR resource library. We're going to have our EMDR and grief targets.
It's wonderful. That resource library is wonderful.
Yes. So there's a wealth of resources. If you have any resource, email it in. We'll add it to the library. That's a free offering because we just love our community here as well. Did I miss anything, Lisa, before we go?
And that is one of the things I love about EMDR and the community, the EMDR community. Everyone is so willing to share information freely.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I could go on and on about that, but I've been so grateful for that. I've learned a whole lot that I didn't pay for.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and that's important as a value offering for me with my BIPOC scholarships to be able to advance that cause. And we're hoping to get some grant money to expand so we can have more people join us on this journey. So I'm Kathy Couch, your host, Tamera. I'm going to say it, Kathy on the couch, as she says. I'm your host here at Rewired 360. Visit me at www.rewired360.com. We'll get Lisa an email and a website here soon. So until
I have an email.
and a website.
Okay.
Until then, we will see you and take care.